So I'm going to show you guys how I'm currently cleaning the lip of my tumblers. This is the tumbler that I'm going to clean. That's the lip. If y'all can see on the inside, it has epoxy in there, and there's glitter and paint and all that. And I'm doing it a little different than how I used to do it, and so I wanted to show you guys an updated version. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to go around the lip right there, and I'm going to get that cleaned up. So I just put it down on the table. I'm just going to go around, and I don't do this before there's 2 layers of epoxy, actually 3, because I use the epoxy method to glitter the tumbler. So I did a thin layer of epoxy, glittered it, did a layer of epoxy over it, did the fine glitter, then I dropped the chunky glitter, and then I did a layer of epoxy over the chunky glitter. So because I'm going to be sanding and all that, I don't want to sand off the color of the glitter. So I don't usually do this until after my second layer of epoxy has dried. I'm just going around. I hope you guys can see that. I'm getting most of that off, and then I'm going to go on the inside and scrape all that off. And then I have a piece of epoxy in there. I'm just going to take the tip of my X-Acto and get underneath there, and you can see it'll lift, and then it just lifts right off. So I'm going to use the X-Acto knife to remove the harder pieces, or just pretty much that rough part. And then I have this. All right. So I'm going to take my sanding block. It's a multi, this is like a finer side and this is a rougher side. And I'm just going to go over it. Like so. Alright. And then it looks like that. So it's already a lot cleaner, but I'm still not done. So I'm going to have to put on my glasses, because now I'm going to use my Dremel to clean up that edge even more. So I have a Dremel 7300. This is from Walmart, and this flat reel, it's a 80, Dremel 80 flat reel wheel. And you can kind of already see I have the indentation because I've used it where the lip of the cup sits in there. So it's going to turn it on. It's going to be a bit loud. Alright. So I'm just going to sit it on there, and then I'm just going to go around the rim of the cup. And this is going to remove that epoxy that's all the way up to the top and give me a thin edge to where my epoxy, my next and hopefully final layer of epoxy, will create a good seal on the stainless of the tumbler. All right. And I just go around it until I can see a bit. I hope you guys can see that of the stainless steel around the edge. Just a tiny bit. You don't need a whole lot. Okay. So once that's done, I'm going to start to sand my tumbler. So when I first start sanding, I start with the rougher side. And I'm just going to sand until any pieces of glitter that's sticking up or that I can feel through the epoxy is smooth. And it's a good idea if your tumbler has been sitting after it has dried, it's been sitting 8 hours or more, to do a light sanding over the entire tumbler just to give the epoxy something to adhere to on your next layer. And that's just going to give you a really nice seal, and you're not going to have to worry about the epoxy pilling or anything like that. Now with the chunky glitter, it always takes a little bit more work than the fine, even when using the epoxy to lay down your chunky, because I mean it's just a chunkier cut, it's a bigger cut. But using the epoxy when I put my chunky glitter down removes the added step of doing another layer of epoxy and sanding really hard, because it'll lay down with the epoxy. So I'm going to make sure I do the sand on the rim and check it, because I want that to be smooth. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to sand around this rim, this lip, because I want it to be as smooth as possible. And now I'll take the finer side and I'll just go over it. And this is just going to help it to get even more smooth. So it's all scratched up and all of that, but when you put your epoxy over it, it shines right back up. So you don't have to worry about, oh, I'm scratching it. It'll shine right back up. I'll just go all the way around. All right. And then you can see in my stainless rim, that's what my epoxy will adhere to. So now I need to clean the inside of it. So how I do that is I take a paper towel. This is acetone. This is not alcohol. Just put my acetone in here. Put some on a napkin, and then I'll go in. This is how I remove any paint or marks from my pool noodle or tape or any of that from the inside. See? All right. And to make sure I get everything out, I cut a piece of a magic eraser, just a small piece. And I'm going to put a little acetone on this. And then I'm going to go around. And if you have any stubborn paint, red and white seem like they're really hard to get out of a tumbler sometimes. Acetone on a magic eraser does it. It gets all of it. And there's nothing left behind. See? It looked like I had everything with the paper towel. Take these off because I can't see. It looked like I had everything with the paper towel. But the acetone on the magic eraser is getting a lot of stuff that I couldn't even really see. All right, so now my rim is smooth. I have my stainless still showing for my epoxy to adhere to the tumbler. My tumbler is pretty much smooth. So my next steps are going to be, I'll go inside, I'll wash this off with some hot water and dish soap, and I'll let it dry. Now, and then I'll put the decal on it. Before I handle it, I spritz alcohol on my hands and completely remove oils from my hands. Lately, I have not been wiping my tumbler with alcohol because I'm trying out the Counterculture DIY epoxy, and it doesn't react well to alcohol wiped tumblers. So I will go inside, wash this off with warm water and dish soap, let it dry, spritz alcohol. There's alcohol in here. I'll spritz alcohol on my hands, let my hands dry. Then I'll place my decal, stick it on the turner, and then hopefully be doing my last layer of epoxy. And that's how I clean the rims and sand my tumbler. Hope that helps somebody.